Welcome to the HONESTea. I am so excited to be recording our very first ever maiden episode of the HONESTea, where we talk about all of the tea on life, the trauma tea, the spirituality, the growth tea, anything that I can put a T on the end about. We're going to talk about all the things that make up your reality. And my intention for this podcast and for this space is that it's for change makers and cycle breakers. And I feel as though there's this whole collective consciousness around ensuring that we are rising to who we were always meant to be. And I know for myself that I was really in a space where I was enjoying some success, and what I realized, at some point was that actually I was still unhappy. There were still parts of me that I hadn't addressed, that I hadn't actually dealt with. And those were, some old traumas, some old limiting beliefs, some generational wounds that I just hadn't dealt with. And, I was living a pretty good life, and I'd built a career, and I had a family, and I had my dream home, and was living a pretty good life with my husband, and this was in Australia. However, there were still just parts of me that weren't healed yet, and I describe it like I'd be walking along and a trauma would fall out, and I'd be like, whoops, oh my God, where did that come from? And, I would find myself just begging to be accepted. I was in this place where, particularly, and for me, it was with my family. I so wanted to be accepted by my sisters, and so I was just begging to be in their lives, and with my husband, we were still figuring out our wounds and turning up in our pain bodies, and and at work, I felt like I had to be somebody else some of the time. And the funny thing is that I had kind of convinced myself that that was the authentic me, but now that I know myself so much better, I know that it wasn't. And so my commitment to you is really simple. I'm going to pour out the honesty every time. I'm going to show up as myself, with the stories and the lessons that have shaped me and my learning. I'm not going to pretend to have it all together. I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers. I'm human. I'm just going to tell you all the truth in the moment. And as I grow, my hope and my prayer and my honest, intention is that as I grow, that we're going to grow together and expand together. And I've been thinking about doing a podcast for so long. And one of the things that I really struggled to accept about myself is that my voice is meant to serve, you know. So I was always that kid, there's a lot of kids like this who had the report card with pretty much, I'm very rare to get a B. I was A student, but it always said, if only Angela could stop talking, she'd be amazing, and my family were always telling me I was too loud. But I was always nominated at family events to be the speech maker, and I knew that even professionally, I was standing up on a lot of stages and, International Women's Day and all those kinds of things. So I kind of knew that about myself, but I had, I guess, not really stepped into what it was. And so I had been thinking about doing a podcast for just the longest time. And I always thought that it was going to be around healing and trauma because of my trauma journey and because of what I do with my clients and, even in workspaces and all of those things. And I knew I know that I'm really, really good. I'm just saying. And I'm leaning into the fact that I'm really fucking good at what I do. I help people in a really honest way to heal and to grow and to become more of themselves. And so I kind of always knew it was going to be that. And I knew it was going to be around healing and trauma. But what I realized when I kind of took this final leap, and I did get a bit of a shove from one of my girlfriends, to finally take the leap, it was something clicked in me, was that I realized it wasn't just about, yes, it's absolutely about trauma, and I want to share, and I'm hoping that my sharing my story will mean that you can also share yours. But it's about living my personal truth, and it's about helping you to see that if you live your hero's journey, right? If you go out there, what does the alchemist call it? If you've ever read that book, The Alchemist, and he follows his personal dream, and I can't remember what he calls it, but it's about being brave around that, and just stepping into my truth and being more of myself and being authentic and being honest. And, so I promise to do that. Some days I'm going to look like I do today, no makeup, no nothing, but like reality is, I actually like to be bougie sometimes, so maybe I'm going to be dressed up sometimes. Who knows? Right now I'm in my home. I literally bought this microphone this morning. Here's some honesty about me, right? So I've had this on the brew for like years. I've been thinking about it. I've been telling myself, and then I finally made this commitment to myself and to, God, the universe, whatever, all that is, to do this and to really step into my truth and to take aligned action. And what I know about myself is I have to set myself a deadline, and so that's what I did. I set myself a deadline, and I knew that I had to show up today. No matter what, I had to show up. And so I literally bought this microphone this morning. I'm really hoping it's working right now, and I'm showing up for you just in my home as authentic as I can be. And you know what? I'm not saying that one day this won't be heavily produced or something. I'm really not making any of those promises. But I'm promising you that however I show up physically, however I show up, whichever space I'm in, I'm going to always keep it real and just keep it honest with you, So episode 0, the reason why I didn't start from 1 is because episode 0 for me is a full circle moment, and actually it's making me emotional just thinking about it. But 0 is like the full circle, and it's the coming home to myself. And the other part of the 0 is the stripping down to realize who I am and to come into more of who I am. And so that's that intention for this space, to be an honest space, to be a safe space, but also to be an expansive space where hopefully what my hero's journey is going to inspire you to live yours and live your most authentic and honest life and be in your most honest space, whatever that looks like for you, right? For me, I finally realized, man, the reason why I use my voice all the time is because I'm really fucking good at it. Like, people listen to me, and my voice holds authority, and I'm not going to be ashamed of that anymore. I really actually love that I get to use my voice to help and heal people. And even in my one-on-one sessions, I know that my voice has power and it heals people. And so I'm stepping into that really bravely and just claiming that out in the world and just saying that's what I do and that's what I'm good at. And so I want you to think about, what are you good at? What's your, come home to Jesus moment that you're just like, well, actually I've always been really good at this, or I've always really loved this. Whether it's art, whether you love accounting, like weirdo, but anyway, if you love accounting, maybe you're the best accountant ever and it just fills you with joy. Maybe you love social media, and so you show up, and maybe you love the background of it. You don't even like to, you don't want to necessarily be an influencer, but maybe you love to set up the logistics of it. Maybe you are really amazing at art. I saw a wonderful lady who makes jewelry from nature. Like, how incredible. Whatever it is for you, I would love for you that this podcast would help you to become more of who you really are. That's the whole idea. That's the honesty, is that I really want you to, to help you to become more of who you are. And the other thing about the zero for me is that over the last sort of number of years, oh man, I have just been in the space of just being raw, and like, I really struggled at some point. I had felt so rejected by my family. We had left our home of 24 years in Brisbane, and life had brought us back to New Zealand, and suddenly we found ourselves in New Zealand when we were supposed to be travelling, and we did for a while, but certainly not for as long as I wanted to. Found ourselves back home in New Zealand, and really couldn't make my peace with that for a while. And I was also, at the same time, so I built a business called Beyond Brave. I was coaching women before I left Australia, and I came back to kind of start, sort of rebuilding, but not really, because I had it all sorted. I had a big following on, I built everything on Facebook. So just full disclosure, I built everything on Facebook, and then what happened was I got hacked and lost everything. So all of the groups and momentum and all my everything, anyway, built it off this platform because I had a business coach who built things that way, and a lot of people have had huge success that way, by the way. But for me, I got hacked and I couldn't reclaim it, and so I had to I felt like I was starting from scratch. And I decided that I needed to build in a really different way, because man, when I lost everything in that way, and that was kind of the final straw for me, was losing what I felt like was losing the business. I lost myself, and that's the zero, is that I put all of this grind and effort and energy into building this business and getting clients, and I was serving the client. Like, when we were one-on-one, it was amazing. But in the other part of it, when I felt like I was having to, spruik my wares and, sell my soul a little, not sell my soul, but, it just felt difficult, and it felt hard, and I didn't feel good about it some of the time. Some of the time it was amazing when I was running lives, when I was, training people, when I was working with my clients. I felt amazing about that. And when I was running workshops, but the other bit felt like a grind, and it felt difficult. And when I lost that was kind of the final piece. So I felt like and there's obviously more to these stories, but I felt at the time that I'd lost my family, that I'd lost my business, that I'd lost my home, that I wasn't with my babies who I adore anymore, and all these things. And I remember just screaming at the top of my lungs, screaming out to the Creator, and just saying, what more? I was driving in my car and tears streaming down my face, and I was saying, what more do you want from me? What more could you take from me? What else is there? I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. Give me something. That's the zero. That was the zero. That was the total stripping down, and I had never felt so alone. We didn't have the same friends. I have beautiful friends in New Zealand, don't get me wrong, amazing friends who have been here forever. But I kind of lost that kind of network of close friends that we would go out with a lot. And my beautiful friends in New Zealand, they're so busy with their own families and their own lives. And that's on me. I didn't reach out to anyone, and I just felt at zero, and I screamed and I cried. I was yelling at I was yelling at God and saying, I am just so fucking tired. Give me a break. I was exhausted. And out the other side of that, I just went quiet, and I just have spent this time realizing that even though I had done all of this healing work, I wasn't healed, and I actually needed to strip even further down and to become my zero again, really, really honestly, and no, kneeling in front of the Creator and saying, this is it, this is who I am, this is what's next, and the gift of that on the other side of that is that I am more healed than I've ever been. I'm not saying I'm fully healed. I still have my moments, absolutely. Healing's a journey, not a destination. I'm always going to be getting there. But I'm definitely way more healed, and so unbothered and so at ease with my life. I don't feel in competition with anyone. I don't feel, I know there's enough abundance for everyone. I have learned so much more about myself in this time where I've had nothing than I could have ever learned had I had everything. And I know that was guidance, and I know that every single moment in my life has been here for a reason and has led me to this moment where I am hoping my intention is to serve you all in a way that shows you that it's okay and you're not alone and other people have done it. And I'm hoping that me being on this journey with you, showing up as honestly and as authentically as I can and raw as I can, that it's going to help you and inspire you to do the same on whatever your hero's journey looks like, for you to you follow your true north and your most authentic self, because I truly believe that if we do that we're going to be rewarded, and that we're creating our own reality, and that we are living our we get to choose to live our best life. We get to choose not to suffer. We get to choose happiness. Healing doesn't have to be difficult, by the way, and it doesn't have to be a codependent relationship with your whoever, your counselor or your psychiatrist or whatever. And I'm not putting down any of those things. I'm just saying everybody gets their own permission slip. Everybody gets to heal however they want. This is my belief system. Everybody gets a permission slip. We can heal how we want. We can heal quickly. It doesn't have to be difficult. I absolutely believe that everybody gets to believe in whatever they want to believe in. I am not here, I absolutely believe in what I would term God, or all that is, or the Creator. Absolutely believe in something or someone bigger, or not, and that I think it would be so and I don't want to use this in the wrong way, because I want to talk about ego, and I want to make our peace with ego. But it would be so egotistical, and I mean in the superior of ego, of me to believe that there was nothing bigger than myself, and I've had way too much happened in my life, and so much alignment, and so many miracles, and so many moments of that I absolutely 100% believe that there is a source, a creator bigger than us. But I just am okay with everybody believing whatever they want. And I actually believe that, that's our place of peace, is when we can say, hey, it's okay if you don't believe what I believe, but let's just figure out where I'm sure we have more in common than we don't. And that's how we figure it out together and find our peace together. So I feel like I've kind of spoken a lot. I hope that this will just encourage you. This is just a taster of what is to come. Um, I want to talk about all the things. I am, you know, I when I decided to drop my corporate career, I figured out all of the things that I needed to do to heal myself, and then I learned how to do those things. And then post that, I've also been in a space where I've realized that, I do have these God-given gifts for healing with my voice that I utilize, in my coaching and all of that kind of thing. So that's what I truly believe. That's what I'm leaning into. That's what I'm becoming more of. That's my honesty. I'm not going to, because what I will say is that, we think of ego as being in the superior, but it's also the inferior, where we don't step into our gifts, when we don't say who we are and what we're good at, and we pretend to be small. And I'm not pretending to be small anymore. I wasn't even pretending. I just was small because I felt like I was less than and not enough. And I'm not doing that anymore. And so I'm really hoping that by being here and sharing this moment and sharing the real honesty, that you're going to be able to truly love and appreciate yourself and your gifts and who you are and how you land in the world and how you want to serve the world. And everybody gets to serve the world in the way that they are made for, right? Whatever fills your cup and fills your soul and makes you feel good on the inside, that's the authenticity. That's the part of you that gets to serve the world in the most beautiful way. And I also want to help you to understand that that can provide you with prosperity and abundance. You can get abundance from whatever God gave you, that you and the way that you want to serve the world. And so I'm just really hoping that you will come with me on this journey, that you will see that you matter and that these conversations matter, and that we get to do all of that together. I appreciate you more than you will ever know. And I just, I'm here for it, for all of it, right? Um, so yeah, go out there, be the most authentic version of you, and I will see you in our next episode, whoever is showing up today. I'm just so grateful for you, and I'm just going to leave you with heal deeply, lead boldly, and live fully. I so appreciate you, and I love you.